You guys, I just met Ron Howard upstairs. We were in the green room, me and Steve, and David, my friend, comes in, and he's like, Ron Howard and Brian Grazer are sitting on a couch waiting for this green room right now. I'm like, are you kidding me? It was such a thrill. His master class, have you guys seen it? He has this one on directing, and I watched it last summer before shooting. Tammy's Always Dying. It was the most helpful thing.
That's one dream realized. So,
It was so crazy.
so I thought we'd start talking about how you moved into directing and how your career started, how you started as an actor. Was that always, did you always want to be an actor? How did that develop?
I knew I wanted to perform. I wanted to do something, or I just needed a lot of attention. I don't know. And so I wound up acting, went to LA and got Power Rangers. And so I acted, for 15 years. And I liked it, but I never loved it. And so recently, transitioning into filmmaking, I have figured out what it was I was searching for at 7 years old. I love it. Like, I love directing and I love filmmaking.
Do you want to talk a bit about Mighty Morphin Power Rangers? It must have been a rather unique introduction to acting. I mean, it was a...
Yeah. I remember it was like my first audition. I had just moved to LA. I was there for about 6 months. I got the role, and I had a friend who was in the industry and an actor, and he's like, you might, not want to take that job wearing, spandex on national television. I did anyway. And then I remember, for some crazy reason, kids loved that show, loved it. And now those kids are adults and the best supporters and fans anybody could ask for.
And then you moved on to Felicity?
Well, so I asked to leave Power Rangers after doing 152 episodes and the movie. And then there was about a year or so where I didn't work. I didn't have an agent, and I think it was hard to transition and take me seriously as an actress from this little kids show. So you know what I did? I decided not to focus on the business and just to focus on the craft and actually take classes and do plays and just sort of develop my skills as an actress. And then I landed Felicity.
How do you find working as an actor? How do you find that sort of, does that feed into how you direct?
Being on a set, the family of a crew, and just how a film set works is so innate within me that directing comes very natural. The biggest learning curve for me with directing and filmmaking was what happens before and what happens after the shoot.
You mean in pre-production and editing?
Yeah. Those were the things I didn't know about as an actress. So that's been where I've learned the most and need to keep on developing.
Do you want to talk a bit about how you, the transition and moving into short films?
So how I got into filmmaking was I wrote a screenplay. It's called Crazier Than You. And it's based off of my mother's life. And she passed away of cancer almost 18 years ago. And when I was a kid, she ended up joining a church, which happened to be a religious cult. So she sort of dragged me and my sister and my brother through this religious cult for 12 years. Anyway, I wrote this story, and it's sort of a comedy, about my mother, and I knew that I want to direct it, and I want to make this movie, and I want to play my mother in the movie, and so I need to get good. I need to learn how to make a movie. So that was the impetus. That's why I made my first short film, and the second one, and then also The Space Between, and even Tammy, is to prepare myself and get better and better so that I can make this movie about my mom that I really want to make called Crazier Than You. Yeah.
And what was it like directing for the first time? Was it a dream
Thrilling.
realized?
Yes. Yeah, that's really, shooting Bent, I was like, oh my God, this is, because I get to use every part of my personality every single part, and it feels like it's supposed to be working. Like I don't, you know what I mean? I don't have to curb any of my bossy, driven side of myself. I get to utilize it and own it.
Can you talk a bit about how Tammy's Always Dying started? You found the script first?
Yeah, Jessica Adams, who produced The Space Between with myself, had gone through the Canadian Film Centre through the Producers Lab. So I went there, and that's where I met Joanne Sarrazin, who wrote Tammy's Always Dying, and she was developing that script while she was in the Writers Lab. And so I went to a reading of it and was just so blown away, and I was sobbing at the end.
The cast is quite stellar. In addition to Felicity Huffman, Clark Johnson does a great job. Anastasia Phillips is really amazing.
Yeah. So the first person that came on board was Felicity. She read the script and she loved it, but she had some questions. So me and Jessica flew out to New York and met with her, and she wanted to make sure it was a story of redemption. But she said, if I commit to this, I need to know now, because it's going to take me 2 months to prepare for this role. And I was just like, oh my God, I want this lady in my movie. What are you going to do for 2 months? This is incredible. You know? And boy, did she show up, not as Felicity Huffman. She showed up as this woman, Tammy. It's terrifying. You have to see Felicity in this movie. Like, she just gave her heart and soul to the film.
Some people said they were terrified of her when she showed up on set because she was so in character.
In the movie, it's about a woman who threatens to jump off a bridge once a month to keep her daughter sort of tethered to the town that they live in. And Felicity is such a brave woman. Like, literally, she is tied up on the side of this train track bridge. Felicity turns around and she looks at me and she's like, if I fall, keep the cameras rolling. I was like, and then she goes walking off and climbs up on the side of the bridge. And she brought her A game. And it set a tone on that set that everybody needed to bring their A game, or that's just not fair. Like, it would be rude if we didn't. I think that's one of the things that I'm like really working on and learning is, you would think as an actress it would be easy, or I would get that part of working with other actors, but I actually find that the most intimidating part of directing, especially at a caliber of a Felicity Huffman or a Clark Johnson, of directing them. I mean, there was a few times during the filming process where I was, can I do this? Like, do I have it? Do I have what it takes to have this conversation with Felicity Huffman, a serious conversation about the role? And there was a lot of pep talks going on in my head.
You're a new Canadian. Do you want to talk about your decision to move to Canada, or
sure,
Canadian citizenship?
Yeah, so I actually, in around 2005, I was turning 35. I was living in Los Angeles. I hated acting, actually, at that time. And I needed to get out of LA because I just found for myself, I was constantly comparing myself to everybody around me, and that's just a terrible way to live. And so I left. I did a movie in Montreal, and I'm like, what is this wonderful, crazy city? I'd never even heard of it, that speaks French. So I, on a whim, moved my entire life to Montreal without knowing a soul. And then I ended up getting Flashpoint. So that's how I came to Toronto and found out that it wasn't necessarily acting or the industry that I needed to remove myself from. I fell in love with acting again, and I fell in love with the entertainment industry again with my time on Flashpoint. It was a wonderful experience for me. And then I also found this city that I love.
So speaking of the city, maybe we could open it up for some questions. Yeah, right there.
So I know you must get typecast a lot as the Pink Ranger. Was there ever a moment in that sort of 2005 range where you just did not want to be associated with it? And what was the process of coming back to own that?
Yeah, I think right after, so more in the 90s, right after doing the show is when I sort of was like, oh my God, I'm never gonna get away. I can't wear the color pink, or, you know. But, but truly in the last 5 to 6 years, have I realized the impact on so many kids and realized the support and the love that I get from them, that at that point, I was like, oh my God, this is a blessing.
Thanks for the question. Next. And
A question over here.
over there. Go ahead.
Hi there. So you mentioned how when you first read the script, it was very cathartic and you knew right away that you loved it. And I'm just wondering, what about Tammy's character did you love so much?
So, again, I'm going to overshare, but my dad is a non-functioning alcoholic. And I say non-functioning, like truly in the last 5 years, he's not functioning as a person, a human being. But he's still absurdly funny. And there's just so much of Tammy that reminded me of my father. And so I think that was my way into the story too, because I didn't write Tammy's Always Dying. And as a director, I'd only ever directed things that I've written. And so I only chose to pursue this screenplay and make it into a movie because of my deep connection to the material.
Anyone else? Right there, yeah.
Thank you so much for talking about change and just leaving everything behind and moving. I think that's what a lot of people have to do now is things keep changing so fast. I'm wondering if there's anything ruminating in the back of your mind to do a movie or write something about all these epic changes to like leave everything behind, literally be like the Vikings, burn your ship.
Right. Well, I did write, when I was a director at the CFC, the screenplay that I worked on, it's called Breaking Emma. And I'll get to that at some point in my career. And that really is about an actress who leaves Los Angeles to change her life. And it's fictionalized a bit. It's not fully what happened with me. I think that's why I'm having a little bit of trouble writing it, because I'm trying to figure that one out, because I really want to tell this story, but I don't think it necessarily needs to be, or maybe it does. I don't know. I'll figure it out. Anyway, I'm working on it.
So I think I'm afraid we have to wrap it up, but I did want to ask, the film premiered last night, and how did that feel?
It was so thrilling and exciting and nerve-wracking a little bit, but I think it went well. People seem to respond and love it. It was so fun. And then we had an after party after, and all my friends and family were there. My sister flew up. My Aunt Mary was there. And I felt like I was at a wedding. I was getting married. I even got free drinks all night. It was so fun.
Thank you guys so much for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you and congratulations.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks for this. Yeah.